Where would I buy in Dudley Park, WA, if I had a gun to my head? Now, this is a conversation not about this is the strongest growth location we've identified across the country. It might be, it might not be. This is a location that's been put forward by you, our audience, to just select which individual streets and property types would we buy in Dudley Park if we had to. So with that in mind, let's firstly look at the map of Dudley Park. It is in the Mandurah area, so south of Perth. It is a different city. Okay, it is separated, from the Perth CBD, by a reasonably large area. Think of it like Newcastle or Wollongong to Sydney, or even Geelong, smaller scale. Obviously, it's not as large as Geelong or Newcastle, but that type of distance, that type of satellite location to Perth. Now, the reason why I wanted to start with the map is because this particular suburb is very different when you look across it. And you generally see this with waterfront, oceanfront type of properties. You've got a lot of canal type infrastructure being built up here, a lot of higher valued properties. And then you have an inland, a more established area of the suburb. So we have to be very careful with this type of suburb with making sure that we are comparing like for like. I've seen some absolute rookie comparable analysis done, or people downplaying the value or the difficulty of comparable analysis recently. You see people in this southern area of Perth saying they've got 10, 20% under market value. Well, they're generally getting their comparable analysis really wrong. They're justifying these purchase prices on properties that are vastly superior or inferior and just completely getting it wrong. You've got to think a valuer goes to uni to get a degree in valuation. You cannot trivialise comparative market analysis. We need to get this right. I'm not saying it's not something that can be learnt, it can be learnt and relatively well. And, it's an 80-20 rule. You can get pretty good at it pretty quickly, but it's not something to be passed over and trivialised. And this type of two suburbs in the one location is a bit of a trap for young players. So overall, it's actually in prime time buying window. This is actually a very strong growth location nationwide, and this suburb is firmly in the overall buying window. We can see some highlights here from the location. Consolidation period recently, slower consolidating price generally provides a strong base for future price performances. As prices grow, it acts as a handbrake on future price performance, has good, strong, high owner-occupier levels, low price discounting right now. That means that there has been that consolidation. We can assess the market, we can potentially enter it well. So 2.6% capital growth over the last 12 months. Now that is houses only. Current sold price in this location is around $500,000. That is a rolling 90-day median value. Now, it is more expensive than some of our neighbours, but it is also cheaper. It's cheaper than this oceanside area, but vastly more expensive than this neighbouring area over here. Now, I would hazard a guess, which we'll see in a moment, that is because of a lot of this canal-fronted properties, higher socio properties. And remember, that side of the suburb might be very similar to these areas over here, whilst this side of the suburb might be much, closer to the $340,000 price point. Right, so if you're using these comparables to justify value over here, you might end up paying 10, 20% or even more than the property is worth. And I've seen that done in the Rockingham, further south parts of Perth, with even online testimonials in the past few months, or up to sort of 12 months. Complete overpaying going on, whilst they think they've actually got a good deal. Remember, in the majority of cases, the bank's valuers, very rarely dispute the contract price, up or down. So that's something that really does sometimes a bit of a trap for young players, as I mentioned. 70% owner-occupiers, very strong. That's ticking my box. I might want to just skip through here to yield. I generally like to target suburbs that have good, strong yield when compared to the suburb overall. whilst you can go here further north to get slightly higher yield, you can definitely get some suburbs here which have very low yield. Potentially, remember, I want to be targeting these suburbs that have higher than average yield inland. You know, Furnessdale might be a better potential, but remember, once again, this is 2 suburbs in 1. Let's just skip to that type of analysis right now. Okay, I'm going to skip straight to sold price, and this is where you can see what I'm talking about. We've got these 2 pockets on this canal front here over $1 million, and the rest of the suburb here is generally under $400,000. We have some higher price pockets here, and then we have some pockets here at around that $350,000. So this is what I'm talking about. This is a trap for young players. Basically, suburb level data now is a combination of these 2 individual suburbs in the one, and it's completely null and void. We need to be looking at what the yield is through this pocket, you know, 5, 5.5, 6%. And that is what we're basing our investment, you know, yay or nay on. And these areas of above average rental pockets. You know, these 2 pockets through here look wonderful. This one here as well, whilst these ones here in the north and the east, potentially not so. We've got to then look at which of these are high yielding. These ones are looking excellent through here, this middle part of the suburb. So this potentially is, you know, those houses or streets that are wedged between the lower price points and the higher price points is the sweet spot. And sometimes we see this occurring in these types of duality or dual zones. Not really any public housing to be concerned of. So for me, it is limiting our opportunities, but look for this zone basically all the way through this suburb until this suburb here, where we seem to have the positive impacts of the higher prices while still having many of the, you know, the better numbers, the better metrics for the lower priced pockets. That would be where I would focus my attention through Dudley Park in WA, if I had to.